and a very warm welcome to Eurosport's coverage of round 5 of the PPG Karts World Series from Rio in Brazil. It's the Rio 400. This is Ben Edwards with Robin Herd, looking forward to a tremendous oval track race. Well, there's an absolutely glorious view of the scene here in Rio, but the cars are already out on the circuit, so let's concentrate on the race that we've got ahead here. Robin, it looks like we've got a dramatic race, and to make it even more dramatic is the fact that we've got two Brazilians on the front row of the grid. The crowd are wild before it's even started.
That Maurizio Gugelmin, who's on pole, his sponsor is the race sponsor. So besides that being great for the crowd, you can see here, there are also going to be all sorts of stories, I'm sure, in pit lane about favoritism on the pop-off valve or something like that.
Well, there you see the front row, Maurizio Gugelmin and Roberto Moreno. Remember, Moreno is standing in for Fittipaldi, Christian Fittipaldi, so great job from him. Second row, the two Team Rahal cars of Bobby Rahal and Brian Herta, the identical time in qualifying. Paul Tracy and Michael Andretti together on row 3 of the grid, and behind them Scott Pruitt and Greg Moore. Remember, Michael Andretti is leading the championship at the moment over Scott Pruitt by some 4 points, but also watch out for Greg Moore, who led here last year, the Canadian. Always a feisty racer. Alonso Jr. and Gilles de Ferran share row 5 of the grid, and both of them have been going reasonably well in qualifying. Unser a little bit disappointed to be back on the 5th row. Richie Hearn and Gualter Salles are on the 6th row, and that's a good performance again from two rookie drivers effectively. Gualter Salles, the young Brazilian, on home territory. Reigning champion Jimmy Vasser is back on row 7 alongside Parker Johnston, who again has been a little disappointing in qualifying here with his Honda power in the Team Green car. Patrick Carpentier, the Canadian, is on 15th place with the last year's race winner alongside him, Andre Ribeiro, really not showing the same sort of performance, nor is his teammate Adrian Fernandez back on row 9, and alongside him is Raul Boesel. Scotland's Dario Franchitti is next up. He's 19th on the grid, and he's got England's Mark Blundell alongside him. So it's an all-British row 10 to the grid. Let's hope they can work their way up nearer the front of the order. Max Papis is on the 11th row with Hiro Matsushita, and behind them we've got two more rookies to the championship this year. Paul Jasper is in 23rd position, and Arndt Meyer, the German, is 24th on the grid, his first oval race. 25th on the grid is PJ Jones, and alongside him is Michel Jourdain, and at the back Juan Fangio and Alex Zanardi. No time recorded for Alex Zanardi. He had a misfire in yesterday's qualifying session that meant he wasn't able to actually set a time. In fact, they've swapped those last two grid positions around according to that graphic, to the information they gave us earlier, but it means that Alex Zanardi, Robin, is starting right at the back of the field. That really means we could see some fireworks.
Yeah, he's a tremendous driver. Very nearly had him driving for me in Formula 1 in the early 90s. Certainly in Italy, where he drove karts, they reckon he's the best thing they've seen in karts since Senna. He had a very unfortunate start to his Formula 1 career, and everybody wrote him off, I think very unfairly, but in the States he's been magnificent.
Zanardi then, starting from the back of the grid, but it's Maurizio Gugelmin who starts from pole position. And this is his first ever pole position in the American Race Series. A superb effort yesterday. Gugelmin and Moreno on the front row together. I just hope that these two Brazilian drivers can get cleanly off to the start on the green flag and get into the first corner safely. They're just beginning to line themselves up for position. The pace car is heading into the pits.
Yeah, Maurizio was always a very good qualifier. Not the same class as a race driver. It'll be interesting to see today.
Here we go then. We're about to get this race underway. 133 laps of the 1.8 mile oval coming up. Round 5 of the series about to get underway. Gugelmin keeps a nice... Oh, we've got a shot to the midfield already. Parker Johnston's involved. Several cars are involved. I think even Franchitti might be in that. Carpentier's there in the Alimax car. We've got a couple of cars coming into the pit lane, and there's drama before the race even gets... Yes, it is Dario Franchitti on the right of your picture. The silver and blue car, the Hogan racing car of Dario Franchitti, taken out in an accident as they came out of turn 4 to cross the start-finish line, and he's trying to get that car back to the pits so that perhaps they can get it repaired. But Robin, we've seen this sort of thing before, haven't we? Just what happens there? What goes wrong in that midfield?
It tends not to happen at the front, you notice. Because, I mean, the guys who win world championships are intelligent and they're mentally tough, and they don't make mistakes like that, well, not often. In the midfield, to be fair, you can't really see the start too clearly. Everybody's trying to get the jump on everybody else, and it goes wrong.
So Dario Franchitti comes back into the pit, and Gugelmin, having thought he was going to get away cleanly on the start of the race, has to do it all over again, and we're under yellow flags before the race has even started. Now let's have a little look in the background. Midway down, there was, well, somebody locked up, somebody hit somebody else, and Johnston was the one who shot across and hit Franchitti, but you couldn't really see what started it. It looks as though somebody accelerated and then somebody had to sort of jam the brakes on, and that's really what started it. A concertina effect there, yes, you can see.
Yeah.
So, well, that was already happening ahead of them, so they got tied up in the accident occurring just ahead. So disappointing for it to start like that, and obviously biggest disappointment in a way for people like Franchitti, who got caught out in that damaged car, and it looked as though they were pretty much minding their own business on the inside rank. It was the outside rank where all the problems occurred. So the race starting here in Brazil in dramatic fashion already. Rio 400, just in the latter stage of a replay there of the accident that's caused this race to be yellow flagged right at the start. Several cars involved, including Parker Johnston and Dario Franchitti. Johnston shot across from one side. Look at the half of the wing missing there on Andre Ribeiro's car. He was the race winner here last year, the Brazilian who scored a massively popular home victory, but there's been a lot of damage. Now, Robin, you've been very involved in engineering, in building Indy cars, in running Formula One cars, every side of the spectrum really in motor racing, but this championship really is one of the most competitive, one of the most closely fought, and I suppose incidents like we saw coming out of that corner, you just got to expect them sometimes.
Yes, I mean, somebody was trying to get the jump literally in midfield, because if you can get a fast start coming out of the corner, then you can pick up several places all the way down the straight. It's a pity. It is competitive. There are two superb series in the world, obviously mainly Formula One and this one.
You noticed there how with Ribeiro, he'd obviously come out of the pits. They'd done some work on his car. They'd sent him out of the pits and then sent him back in again. Why is that?
It's so that he doesn't lose a lap. He gets out just before the leading car comes around, goes around like crazy, and it gives him another minute, something like that, to work on the car. So with a bit of luck, he won't lose a lap and can start at the back of the field.
That's something that Dario Franchitti's been unable to do, because we saw a lot of damage to the left front there on his car. So unfortunately, I think the Scot is out of it. He's out of the car, pretty much out of the race. It is one thing that I have to say is quite good about this form of racing compared with Formula One, is the opportunity to get back out in the race. We often see them spin off, for example, but they always are given a helping hand. They don't never seem to want to stop them racing.
Sure, no, you're right. In that way, it's very American, very like NASCAR, where the aim is to make a good race. The perfectionists might say, well, that's not real racing, but it does produce exciting racing. There are arguments both ways.
So it looks as though the race is going to get restarted again in one lap's time. Just quickly, Robin, you were very involved in running Maurizio Gugelmin in his Formula One career. You actually introduced him into Grand Prix racing. How do you rate him as a driver? He's a very good test driver. As I say, he's perhaps not too aggressive in the races, which means he doesn't overtake too often, and that hinders him. Very good responses. He makes sure, and I don't mean this in a cynical way, he makes sure he gets on very well with his sponsor, with the help from his wife. Don't take that the wrong way. You'll never find Maurizio getting thrown out of the team he's in. Takes it very professionally. So he is leading the pack around under the yellow flags at the moment, Maurizio Gugelmin, as the work continues in the pits to try and repair some of those cars that lost out on the first start. You're riding with Michael Andretti at the moment, and he's starting in 6th position on the grid for this one. Remember, the winner of the Homestead Oval race, the championship leader as well, by some 4 points over Scott Pruitt. And the car looking very good. It's his teammate Roberto Moreno who qualified on the front row in the other Swift chassis. Superb performance. It's his best ever qualifying performance, of course, for Moreno. He's grasped this opportunity to race a top-line car with both hands, and he's making the most of it now. Coming around out of the final corner to restart the Rio 400. Maurizio Gugelmin across the line then, and leads Roberto Moreno as we get some green flag racing underway here at Rio, and the battle is on for second position, and Bobby Rahal having a little look down the inside into turn 1, but Moreno's able to close the door, and Brian Herter is trying to go around the outside of his team leader Bobby Rahal as they go through turn 1. Up through turn 2, which is a kink onto the back straight, building up to high speeds here, then through turn 3, another kink left, taken flat out once again, but then it's hard hard on the brakes into turn 4, down a couple of gears, and then accelerate. And Rahal moves up in a second. You see it from on board Roberto Moreno's car. There is Moreno. Just ahead is the blue and white car of Bobby Rahal. And Rahal is looking in absolutely superb form here this weekend, qualifying in 3rd position, and now chasing after race leader Maurizio Gugelmin. Roberto Moreno in 3rd. He's coming under pressure from Paul Tracy. Tracy trying to squeeze. Oh, they've made contact, and Moreno is spun out. Herta spins as well, and Paul Tracy goes through. I think Herta spun. Yes, he's there on the inside in the Shell car. So Herta and Moreno both falling victim there as Paul Tracy tried to squeeze his way down the inside. We've got yellow flag racing once again. And Robin, what did you make of all that?
You have to say Tracy again. Benetton, he came over and tested with Benetton, and they thought a lot of him as a driver, but he has too many incidents in races and spoils it for everybody else as well as himself.
I think he's actually survived this incident, and Moreno was the one who got spun out there. Tracy tried to squeeze down the inside. Moreno seemed to be a little bit in two minds as to whether to leave in the room or not. Let's have another look at it here. You see, Tracy was actually quite a long way, but then, yeah, a very difficult one to call, isn't it?
Yeah.
There's Herta spinning.
Tracy got the break, and it's a shame for Moreno because he's had a very difficult career. He's a good guy and a good driver. Didn't deserve it.
No, he seems to be one of those guys a bit afflicted with the bad luck charm occasionally. As you see the field now behind the pace car. The pace car presumably out there somewhere at the moment, but they're slowed right down under yellows. Gugelmin, Rahal, superb charge from Bobby Rahal, the 3-time champion, but he's the old man now, isn't he, of this class of racing?
His car is working very well in the 2 corners. It was interesting watching Moreno. His car was understeering quite a lot, and the result was that Rahal and Herta were coming out onto the straight much quicker. So not only were they gaining in the corner, but then they've got this enormous straight in which the exit speed was they were going to hold that advantage to the whole straight.
Another view of that incident, and Moreno, really, in some ways, he just should have been a bit more aggressive in the first place, shut the door, not given Tracy the opportunity. And once Tracy had a sniff, there was always the danger then that something was going to go wrong. It was a little bit of hesitation almost on Moreno's part. You can't blame him. He's got this opportunity. He's running up at the front. He's not really had the chance to race up against the likes of Paul Tracy in the past. It must, it must get the older nerves going a bit.
Sure, certainly, for instance, in Formula One, the drivers have a sort of pecking order for how they overtake, and if you saw anybody who saw Senna coming up to overtake, you'd get out of the way, because if you didn't, there'd be an accident, and there was no point. And Moreno, not having that experience, he doesn't know who you can shut off and who you've got to miss. Obviously you've got to miss Tracy.
You've got to miss Tracy, you don't give him a chance. Well, Gugelmin leading them around, Rahal in second, but Tracy seems to have survived that little incident. These cars are built pretty strongly, aren't they? They seem to be able to get through incidents like that without too many problems. Yeah,
fabulous. I mean, the safety work that's been done by CART and by the 4 manufacturers is great. It's very rare you see a really serious accident these days. 15 years ago it was dreadful.
There, the view from on board Moreno's car as he got the tap from behind as Paul Tracy went through up into 3rd place. And Moreno now with a lot of work to do. The car hopefully relatively undamaged, as well as Tracy's car, but of course the spin dropped him well down the order, and now he's going to have to really apply himself to get somewhere in this race and get a good finishing position out of it. Gives us a chance to have a little bit more of a look at the circuit perhaps. It's unique in the terms of oval tracks, and as you saw once the race got underway, we've got 2 really very sharp corners. That's turn 1 and the last corner on to start finish straight, turn 4, and 2 really kinks. They're not real serious corners, but those sharp corners, Robin, they take a lot of car setup to get the car just right.
Absolutely. This is a unique circuit because although it's an oval, it doesn't have the same characteristics of the normal oval. Basically because the 2 main corners at the end, those 2 kinks don't matter, they're both flat out, are much slower. They're about 3rd gear, about 100 miles an hour. And there you've got to get the mechanical side of the chassis working as well as the aerodynamics. And 180-degree 3rd gear corner is by far the most difficult.